Post this guy.
Together.
I recognize that, so I
My youngest daughter, Bella.
Good, how are you?
Daughter. He's the chair of the select board. I drag it. Carol's on. State rep.
Should we take this from you?
Yeah, sure. Good job, guys. Yeah, you see the truck? Yep. Front to the left.
We can't throw him from water bottle.
Thank you.
Behind all the tall ones.
That's all relative, right?
I know. Hold up the line, Jetta.
We're going to be doing a prayer. When they say uncover, take an uncover means. Hat off. When they're doing prayer, that's uncover. So when we're doing a prayer, we take the hat off. If we're doing this move, if we're doing like we did now, we're doing this one. So if you hear me say uncover, that means take your hat off. And afterwards, you put it back on, okay? Okay, take it. You've all been such good listeners. You've all done so good. So thank you all so far. You've done fantastic. Remember, again, when they're talking up there, we're paying attention to them. We're not talking to each other. We're not wiggling. Okay? Because again, look at everyone around you. Everyone's going to be looking at you guys too. Okay, we're right in the front. So I feel like this. You guys are doing awesome. Great job. Keep going.
I know, I was talking to him.
All right, everybody, we'll get settled in here as the rest of the parade floats make their way on by, and we will begin our ceremony shortly.
That is such a cool thing.
Good morning, everybody. Hello, and welcome to the Town of Easton's 2023 Memorial Day Parade and Ceremony here at Veterans Memorial Park in Easton. With me, I have our two Veteran Service Organization commanders, Commander Teresa Padico-Poole of the American Legion Post 7 and Commander Steve Shaw of the VFW Post 2547. Also in attendance, we have State Representative Carol Doherty, District Director Lauren Howard from Senator Timilty's office, Select Board Chair Dottie Fulgenetti, Select Board Vice Chair Craig Barger, and Select Board members Mark Lamb, Jamie Stebbins, and Jennifer Stacy. Thank you all for being here today. Today, we gather to honor the brave men and women who have made the ultimate sacrifice for our country. We pay tribute to those who gave their lives in service to our great nation, and we also honor their families who have endured unimaginable loss. Memorial Day is a time to reflect on the price of freedom and the sacrifices that have been made to secure it. It is a day to remember those who have served and to thank the men and women who continue to defend our freedom today. It is a day to pay our respects to those who have fallen, to honor their memory, and to never forget their sacrifice. As veterans, we have seen firsthand the cost of war. We have witnessed the bravery and selflessness of our fellow service members who stood side by side with one another in the face of danger. We have also witnessed the pain and heartache that comes with losing a brother or sister in arms. It is a pain that never truly goes away, but one that we carry with us as a reminder of the cost of freedom. So may we never forget the brave men and women who have given their lives in service to our country, and may we always be grateful for the freedoms they have secured for us. I'd like to ask our scouts to stand and please lead us in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Scouts. I'd now like to invite Pastor Adam Rivero to lead us in prayer.
Good morning. Why is Memorial Day so important? I was reminded of this just a few days ago when I had the opportunity to stand at the top of Flagstaff Hill in Boston Common. Behind me was the Soldiers and Sailors Monument, which was erected for those who fought for the Union in the Civil War. But in front of me, as many of you have seen before, was a sea of flags, 37,000 small flags planted in the ground, each one representing a life from the Revolutionary War all the way to this present day. From the shot heard round the world till 2023, someone who gave their life for the freedom that we enjoy today. I'm reminded of Romans chapter 5, verses 6 through 8, which says, "For when we were yet without strength, in due time Christ died for the ungodly. For scarcely for a righteous man will one die, yet peradventure for a good man some will even dare to die. But God commendeth his love toward us, in that while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us." These verses speak of much doctrine, but in speaking of Jesus Christ and others, it reminds us of both the nobility and the scarcity of those who are willing to give their lives for the sake of another. Why is Memorial Day so important? Because there's something uniquely precious about someone who is willing to give their life for a greater cause than themselves. Freedom is not free. It's come at a great cost. May we take every opportunity to remember what these brave men and women have done. And may we take this day to enjoy with our friends and family and neighbors, to dedicate this day and ourselves to their memory. Will you bow your head in prayer with me? Heavenly Father, we do come before you this morning thanking you for this opportunity to be able to remember those who gave the ultimate sacrifice. I do pray for family members, for friends, for brothers and sisters in arms who have those who they deeply love and care for, who have died for the freedom that we now enjoy today. I pray your comfort and peace upon them during this day. And equally, Lord, I do pray for those who continue to serve and for those who are veterans, that you would continue to give them the protection and the comfort and peace for what they have done for this country and for us. We thank you for this time, and we dedicate it to you, and we ask it all in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor Rivero. At this time, I'd like to welcome Oliver Ames High School student Cassie Pasias to sing the national anthem. Do you want to hold the microphone or do you want to stand?
I'll hold it. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watch were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Beautiful. Wow, that was outstanding. Thank you very much. I'd now like to invite Select Board member and Air Force veteran Jamie Stebbins to read the Commonwealth of Massachusetts 2023 Memorial Day Proclamation.
A proclamation. Whereas while the nation was still recovering from the horrors of the Civil War, people in cities and towns across the country gathered to honor those Union and Confederate soldiers who had given their lives celebrating the first Decoration Day. And whereas after World War I, the nation came together again to honor those who had fallen in the service of their country, renamed Memorial Day, the last Monday in May is when people remember and honor the memory of all the men and women who fought and died in all American wars and conflicts. And whereas throughout our country's history, thousands of Massachusetts citizens have fought in wars and conflicts to defend our safety and way of life. And whereas their legacy of patriotism and dedication to country is an inspiration for all Americans. And whereas it is appropriate that all Massachusetts citizens remember the bravery of those who gave their lives so that their sacrifices serve as a reminder of the cost of our freedom. Now, therefore, I, Maura T. Healy, Governor of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, do hereby proclaim May 29th, 2023 to be Memorial Day, and urge that all citizens of the Commonwealth take cognizance of this event and participate fittingly in its observance. Given at the Executive Chamber in Boston this day of May, in the year 2023, and of the independence of the United States of America, the 246th. Corey, thank you, as always, for what an amazing turnout and gathering that he's coordinated, and every year seems to find a way to outdo himself. I want to thank the Gold Star families that have joined us here today. As we really, teach our children, too, what this is truly about, right? What Memorial Day is, and for those of us that are fortunate to be with our families, and as we recognize and listen to those that have lost something that many can't imagine, including myself. Had the fortunate opportunity to come home and be a civilian and realize those freedoms that so many have sacrificed and given. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Jamie. At this time, I would like to invite Ann DeSanto to sing a selection for us.
In the sweet light of the valley, where the sun falls upon the pine, I shall lay down all my troubles, and I'll lift up this heart of mine. Take me home, Lord, oh, take me home. Cross the hillside and o'er the sea, to the soft grass of the valley, where your grace shall set me free. Through the shadow of the darkness, through the storms that lead me astray, I shall travel forever, knowing in your light I'll always stay. Take me home, Lord, oh, take me home. O'er the hillside and o'er the sea, to the soft grass of the valley, where your grace shall set me free. Take me home, Lord, oh, take me home. O'er the hillside and o'er the sea, through the soft grass of the valley, where your grace shall set me free.
That was wonderful, Ann. Thank you very much. And now I'd like to invite Mr. Ed Hands to tell us a little bit about the history of Easton and Memorial Day.
Hello. Normally, we're down at the monument in Easton Center, and I'm telling you a story about a veteran who made the supreme sacrifice during our Civil War. I'm going to save that because we have a very special new event coming up. On June 19th, we're going to rededicate the newly moved memorial and also celebrate for the first time the new national holiday of Juneteenth. So I hope you guys will join us down there for that. I hear there'll be food trucks there too. Today I want to talk about Ebsy and Al, two Easton 25-year-olds who were the very first Easton residents to get overseas to join in the Allied attempt to beat the Germans in World War I. Ebsy and Al. were ahead of the armed forces of the United States by almost a year. Why? Because in 1916, the Army decided to set up flying corps of emergency hospitals in all the major hospitals in the country so that they would be able to react at a moment's notice to any emergency. Ebbsy, Helen Ebbs, from Canton Street, and Mary Alice Downey from Ginny Lynn Street volunteered as graduates of Peter Brent Brigham Nursing Hospital to go with the Harvard Medical Corps to France. They were recruited 1 month after America declared war, and they were on a boat to go overseas on May 17th, 1917. 106 years ago today, they landed in France. And 1 day later, because it wasn't a Monday holiday then, they celebrated Memorial Day at their new hospital. It was a tent hospital in the heart of France. But they took time in getting set up to celebrate, commemorate Memorial Day, an American holiday. The British had been fighting the Germans for a number of years, so they had a strong medical system set up. If you were wounded in a trench in World War I, there would be a foxhole set up immediately in back of the trenches that was able to provide life-saving first aid. Then, if you were lucky enough to find a stretcher bearer, you would be taken back to a mobile hospital, a tent hospital. And that was the kind of hospital that Ebbsy and Al were serving in. In between, there was something called the Casualty Clearing Station. And that was the very first place that you could come up with actual surgical assistance. And then behind the tent hospital, in some of the major cities of France, there were real hospitals. The British trained the Americans for a number of months, and then in early September of 1917, Ebbsy and Al's hospital was turned over to the United States. And the commander, against recommendations, the first thing he did was fly the American flag. This was the first American flag to be flown overseas as part of the Allies, and it attracted a German bomber the very next day. The German bomber, despite the fact this was a hospital, went right down the center of the camp, dropped 5 bombs loaded with shrapnel. 3 members of the medical corps were killed, and dozens of patients and nurses and orderlies were wounded. Ebbsy and Al jumped into the service. Whether they had flesh wounds or not, we don't know, but they did their best to save lives. Things continued. More air raids, more moving back and forth. Ebbsy volunteered in 1918 to go forward to one of these casualty clearing stations. And she served for 8 weeks in an emergency situation as the Allied forces began to push the Germans back. So there was a lot of activity. She was saving lives. A casualty clearing station had 2 doctors, 1 nurse, and some orderlies. So she was very, very busy. And sometime during that period, she committed some kind of still unknown act of bravery that caused the British Army to give her a medal, the Royal Red Cross, which was donated to nurses who had served either a long time, like Florence Nightingale, the first recipient of this award, or someone who had been brave in action. Well, she was only there 7 weeks, so she clearly was brave in action. Ebbsy and Al stayed with their unit through the Great Flu epidemic of 1918 and finally made it home in February of 1919, well after most of the American troops. So these 2 girls were there before and after most of our troops. During their time in France, their unit served 48,000 patients, trying to prevent those people from making the supreme sacrifice. What was life like for them? Well, if you ever saw the TV show MASH, you know that the pressure of wartime oftentimes would cause them to celebrate a little bit too much. So in a diary kept after the war, Al was known as a great dancer. She was the dancer of the unit. And Ebsy was known as the little red-headed flirt. She was barely 5 feet tall. All the nurses were known for lorry jumping, which was jumping on a truck and going someplace to enjoy life in France behind the lines, hopefully behind the lines. But it also told us that Al was a surgical nurse in the heavy unit. That was the unit that tried to save the lives of the most seriously wounded, dealt with the amputees, dealt with the terrible chest wounds, tried to save lives. And then Ebsy, we know, got a medal. So I like to think of these girls overseas on the very first day on the job, stopping to celebrate Memorial Day, just like Easterners do today. And second, staying on duty and trying to save lives of people who are fighting for American freedom. A very special story, very special women. They both came home, both got married, lived long, long lives into their 80s and 90s, and finally passed away in the 70s and in 1980s. And I bet you don't even know their story, except we discovered it just today. So American women, also important factors in Memorial Day. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed, very much for sharing that information. Learn something new from you every year. So, at this time, I have the distinct honor of introducing this year's guest speaker and parade marshal. Sergeant McDouglas Deegan enlisted into the Army in 2017. Mac had one desire, to become an Army Ranger with the 75th Ranger Regiment. After completing basic, AIT, and airborne school, Mac attended RASP, the assessment and selection course for the 75th Ranger Regiment. Mac was selected to be an Army Ranger and was stationed at Fort Benning in the Special Troops Battalion of the 75th. While there, Mac became a demolitions expert and attended Ranger School, the Army's premier leadership school, where he earned the coveted Ranger tab. Upon graduation, Mac received orders to 1st Ranger Battalion. While there, he earned his expert infantry badge, was promoted to sergeant, and served one combat deployment. What you will not see in Sergeant Deegan's military records is that while he was an incredibly gifted and dedicated soldier, he suffered with his mental health. Sergeant Deegan, sadly, will not be here today because he succumbed to his mental health struggles on June 29th, 2021, leaving behind many loved ones, including his wife and young son. They're here today. His Gold Star widow, Courtney, is here to speak on his behalf today with their son, Sawyer. Courtney, will you please come up and address our audience?
Good morning, and thank you all for being here today. This is my son, Sawyer. Sawyer, say hi. Can you wave? On Memorial Day in 2019, my husband, Sawyer, and I continued the tradition that he had started for our family a year prior. This tradition consisted of reading aloud the biographies of several Rangers who had died in service of our country. They're known by other Rangers as Airborne Rangers in the Sky. What we did not know in 2019, as we anticipated continuing this tradition with our son, was that in June of 2021, Mac would become our very own Airborne Ranger in the Sky. In many ways, for families that have lost a loved one in the military, every day is Memorial Day. As anyone who has lost a loved one knows, there's a point after the wake and the funeral and the ceremonies are over where everyone else goes back to their regular lives, when it feels like your world has just been rocked and you have to keep moving. Memorial Day is a nice reminder for Gold Star families that the rest of the country sees us still. So thank you. With every day being Memorial Day and the rest of our lives, it's a painful reality for my 4-year-old son. As he's grown, so has his awareness of the perpetual empty chair in his life. Everywhere we go, there's an empty chair. Anyone who has lost a loved one knows about this empty chair. What's hardest for me personally about this particular empty chair is that it's my son who's having to experience it so young from someone so important. Every day, Sawyer wrestles with the harsh reality of this empty chair. He has started talking about his daddy every day and everywhere we go to anyone who will listen, whether it's the employee checking us out at the grocery store or his t-ball coach when he's up at bat. And this is not because of the memories they shared together, since he passed when Sawyer was only 2, but because of the overwhelming reality that there is an empty chair in his life. At 4 years old, he's left grappling with something many adults cannot wrap their heads around. People kindly suggest how strong they think we are, and that we are walking a journey they couldn't walk themselves. But I can tell you this, I certainly do not feel strong. If it wasn't for my faith in Jesus Christ, I don't know how I would cope and even be here standing before you today. But today we remember the empty chairs of those who did not come home and those who lost the battle at home. And today will be filled with friends and families gathering for barbecues and picnics. And this is wonderful. But for today, many, there will be a very real empty chair at those gatherings. I do hope that you enjoy your barbecues and your gatherings. I hope that you and your families celebrate the lives of the fallen and remember the sacrifice of their families as well. I hope you have a beautiful Memorial Day with your families. And thank you for the honor of letting me share on behalf of my husband and so many Gold Star families across the country. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Courtney. I really, there are not words that I could say to show how grateful I am, and all of us are, for you to be here to share your experience with us and really drive home what the meaning of this day is. So thank you, and thanks, Sawyer. So I have one last thing, and then I will let you sit down. I want to present you with something. So each year, the owner of Shoveltown Flag Company here in Easton gives a very small number of these beautiful handmade wooden flags made from reclaimed wood, and he offers them to very deserving recipients. And we'd like you to have this one. This is for you and Sawyer to hang in your home.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. At this time, I would like to ask a member of the Select Board to lay the wreath on the monument. Rifle Squad, attention! Ready, aim, fire!
Please join in the singing of God Bless America. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home.
Thank you. I'd now like to welcome American Legion Post 7 Commander Teresa Padico-Poole.
Thank you, Corey. Today, I would like to make a statement for today. This day is sacred with the almost visible presence of those who has gone before us. We honor the memory of those who gave their lives in the service of our country, and of others who have dropped their burdens by the wayside of life and are gone to their eternal rest. May the ceremonies of today deepen our reverence for our departed friends. Let us renew our pledge to loyalty to our country and its flag. Let us resolve by work and deed to emphasize the privilege and duty of patriotism. And in that vein, I'd like to read In Flanders Field. In Flanders Field, the poppies blow between the crosses, row on row, that mark our place, and in the sky, the larks still bravely singing fly, scarce heard amid the guns below. We are the dead, short days ago, we lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders Field. Take up our quarrel with the foe, to you from feeling hands we throw. The torch be yours to hold it high. If ye break faith with us who die, we shall not sleep though poppies grow in Flanders Field.
Thank you, Commander. Please welcome VFW Commander Steve Shaw.
Well, welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming down today for this very special day that we have. I hope I see that girl singing at Fenway, the national anthem. That was beautiful. That was beautiful. You guys look great. You're doing a wonderful job. I took over the commander about 3 years ago now, going on 3 years. And I've met a lot of great guys there and that do a lot of things year-round that people don't know what they do. And I'm going to point one out today, and his name is Marty Paul. Marty Paul's over there in the background doing the work like he always does. He goes around and he collects donations and stuff and takes them over to the vets over there, over in Brockton. And he's also involved in another program where we donate money so the guys can get haircuts and stuff like that, and Marty's in charge of that. And because of that, all donations today that we get over at our poppy tent, Marty, that's all going to be for your programs. Because you give 100%, you're getting 100% of that. He really does deserve it. He's one of those guys in the background that I get a lot of credit for the stuff he does. So, without any further ado, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you, Commander. I'd now like to welcome State Representative Carol Doherty.
Good.
Thank you very much, Corey. I think that the town of Easton is so blessed by having you leading the activities and the support of veterans in this community. So thank you very much. I am as equally pleased to join you, citizens of Easton, these wonderful Cub Scouts or Boy Scouts? Thank you. And my colleagues in government. And I would also say that my colleague, Representative Cassidy, I represent a little part of Easton, well, 2.5 precincts, and Representative Cassidy, newly elected to represent you for the rest of the town of Easton. So his district is multifaceted. He has many towns in his district, as well as Senator Timothy, so I bring their greetings to you as well. And I am delighted, of course, to join our veterans, and it is always a pleasure to join you here in Easton, especially on such an important occasion. Yesterday, as I settled down with my morning coffee to read the Sunday paper, I happened upon 2 articles in the Boston Globe focused on World War II correspondent Ernie Pyle. You may not remember that name. Some of you are not old enough and perhaps read about him in the history books. But I remembered that name from when I was a little girl, so the articles about him intrigued me. One was about a newly published biography titled The Story of War, and the other about how Ernie Pyle's style of reporting wasn't much like today's journalism at all. It is said that his most memorable works excelled at conveying big things simply. If I might, I would like to share excerpts from that story with you. Perhaps some of you had an opportunity to read the Sunday Globe yesterday at your leisure. Soon after nightfall on December 14, 1943, a quiet and unassuming Army captain by the name of Henry Waisco led what was left of his battle-weary company toward a knoll on the steep and rocky slopes of Mount Samorcro, directly behind the ancient Italian village of San Pietro. To reach their objective, Waisco and his men crept across a deep saddle and followed a trail across a slippery slope that skirted the edge of the ravine. "Wouldn't this be an awful spot to get killed and freeze on the mountain?" Waisco asked his company runner, Riley Tidwell. And suddenly, seeming out of nowhere, they were jolted by the sound of German shells screaming through the air. The captain pushed Tidwell to the ground. Bullets whizzed past them, mortars crumped. The bare slope of their location offered nothing for a man to hide behind. But through the flashing light of the explosion, all around him, Tidwell saw the captain hit. It all happened so quickly. The captain was alive, and then he was not, and he was killed instantly. Considering the hundreds of young American men who were killed fighting for San Pietro, hundreds in a list of tens of thousands already lost, the death of one ordinary man on the lonely mountainside was an example of war on a miniature, intimate scale. But for those who were there when Waisco was killed, it didn't feel small at all. And for Tidwell, losing the captain was like he'd lost the greatest friend that he had ever had in his life. Later that night, Riley Tidwell recovered the captain's body, and Ernie Pyle, the correspondent, was there. At that moment, Pyle committed to doing something truly revolutionary in the history of war reporting. He was going to describe the combat death of one man at a time when American newspapers were prohibited from publishing images of that war. By writing a true war story about a beloved captain's men paying their last respects, Pyle accomplished something none of the other correspondents who covered the Second World War were able to do. Pyle had, in other words, nudged his readers to feel that the war their sons and their husbands were dying in was not only a world war, to be observed from the safe distance of home, but it was an individual war, a personal war. By concentrating on Waisco's individual devotion, suffering, and sacrifice, Pyle endowed the cause in Italy with a deeper meaning. America was great, Pyle seemed to be saying, because it produced heroic sons like him, and soldiers like Waisco and his men deserved a nation that was worthy of their sacrifice. Today, Memorial Day, here, safe at home, we pause with heads bowed and hands over our hearts to remember the fallen, reflect on their sacrifice, and recommit ourselves to the ideals for which they gave their lives. But after the roll call is made and the last note of taps rings out, it is incumbent upon those of us gathered here to keep the spirit of this day in our hearts. For while we gather but once a year to commemorate the service and sacrifice of our nation's fallen, we honor them each day by remembering that American freedoms are never more than one generation away from extinction, and that each of us must do our part to preserve the ideals of opportunity, freedom, equality, and justice for everyone, for all. Thank you to our veterans today. God bless you. God bless all of us, and God bless these United States. Thank you. Thank you, Corey.
Thank you, Rep. Doherty. Now I'd like to welcome someone who supports veterans without question in Easton, our Chair of the Select Board, Dottie Fulgenetti.
Thanks, Corey. It's an honor to be here with my fellow Select Board members and state delegation to honor the people that have served and have not come back on Memorial Day. It's very hard to speak after listening to Courtney and your story, and I feel so terrible to hear that. I think it's really important to listen to the stories that Ed tells us. And, you know, when we think of Memorial Day and those that served, it's so broad, but when you hear the stories of people that were actually from our community, both past and present, and hear about their struggles, it really is important that we remember that and we share those stories and continue to share it. When my son joined the Navy 5 years ago, I didn't really know that much about the Navy. My father served, but he never really talked about it. And I guess my only reference was what I would see on TV. It's not like an officer and a gentleman, I can tell you that. Every day that people serve is a day that contains danger in many different ways, whether they're at war or peace. They struggle with mental health issues, they struggle with physical issues, and I hear it very often from my son. There's 5,000 people on his ship, and there's a lot of unwellness there. It's dangerous. And so to hear your story, Courtney, I just want to reflect on that and tell you that I really appreciate your family and your husband, Mac, and your son, Sawyer. So with that, I would just ask people to please think about the people in your lives, do something kind to pay it forward on Memorial Day weekend, and remember those that have served and continue to serve for our freedom. Thank you.
Thank you, Dottie, and thank you to the Select Board. Now, I'd like to have one final selection from the Oliver Ames High School Band. Lastly, I'd like to thank you all for being here with us today to honor yet another Memorial Day in Easton. I'd like to give special thanks to ECAT for being here to film and broadcast this ceremony so those who could not make it did not miss the opportunity to honor and observe this special day. I'd also like to thank the Easton DPW, Police Department, and Fire Department for all your support with this event as well. And thank you to all others who support the work we do here in Easton to support our military and veterans families. And in closing, I'd like to just remind everyone, if you know of anyone in need, veteran or not, please refer them to my office at the Health and Community Services Department. And now, finally, please join us. We have food and ice cream trucks ready that are prepaid for the first about 150 people, so please enjoy that. After those first 150, do not race there. Line up orderly, military style. But yes, please enjoy, and again, thank you all for your support today. I think we ended on time.